So, hi everyone, welcome to the Code Ninja Spaces, episode 16. This week we are talking about how the intelligence is breaking down the institutional boundary. It's governments versus AI labs, and the question is who controls the intelligence. The US Department of Defense recently demanded the unrestricted access to AI models from Anthropic, citing the national security and supply chain risk. Yep, Anthropic refused to do the cooperation related to the mass surveillance and autonomous weapon. But something was more interesting. At the same time, OpenAI signed a mega deal deploying their AI models to the Pentagon classified network. In result, 591, around 591 Google employees and 93, I guess, OpenAI employees signed the protest letters against it. Even though some of the professors from the Wharton, Eth and Molik were saying that when AI becomes this strategically important, this is obvious things to happen. So, Umar, the question here is from you that why does governments are trying to control AI labs for the defense infrastructures?
So, uh, specifically about this Claude thing, what you talked about,
Mhm.
uh, uh, historically, U.S. government was working with a company called Palantir, right?
Mhm.
And uh, regarding intelligence and things like that. But when you talk about Claude, so the whole architecture works in a way that Palantir has this incredible capability to process very large amounts of data, right?
Mhm.
And then when you bring Claude on top of it, you can take actions at the speed of thought. Uh, at the speed of thought का मतलब ये कि when, for example, if you're in a high pressure environments, especially in defense and things like that, you need to take decisions extraordinarily faster and what's called speed of thought way. So
Mhm.
with Claude, with AI, intelligent compression Claude की इतनी ज़्यादा है कि even very large chunks of data,
Mhm.
GBs of data, video data, text data, intelligence data, it processes at the speed of thought. As you're talking, it's giving you the real-time information. This is incredible value
Mhm.
for defense, for the government organizations. So that's what I've seen. What we've seen is that U.S. government wanted to use Claude for certain defense ops,
Mhm.
and then Claude said you can't use it because of these two clauses. And then you've seen on X how it has unfolded. And now OpenAI has said, okay, we would do it, but clearly OpenAI is not even close to what Claude is, especially in those scenarios. So I think at one end, I'm not sure how to think about it, but AI is extraordinary. हम तो पहले दिन से कह रहे हैं,
Mhm.
it's incredibly powerful. ये गूगल फोटोज में आपके फ्रेंड्स को मैच करने वाली एआई नहीं है कि दिस इज गॉन, इट्स मैथमेटिक्स ऑन स्टीरॉइड्स, राइट?
Mhm.
ये कंप्यूटेशन इतनी ज़्यादा है और it's for governments. I think they've realized it's important for them to control this. It's just like they're controlling other critical assets. So this is what's happening in this जिसकी आप बात कर रहे हो, Claude versus the government and all. But for us, for people who are listening to this, I think उनके लिए ज़रूरी है कि they try to understand कि उनके अपने पास क्या capability. Claude with local deployments and जो गवर्नमेंट में होंगी, उसके अलावा तो क्लाउड आपके पास भी है. What you can make of it, right? इतनी
AI is becoming an economic actor. Multiple signals this week shows that how AI agents are moving from tool use to actors. So even though Cursor reported that their agent usage is now more as compared to their autocomplete tab feature, law firms are branding themselves as cloud native companies. Some of the researchers at UCSG are also creating agents that are living in simulated societies. That is something huge and interesting as well. Moreover, an agent name as Einstein is attending university lectures and completing the assignments autonomously. So, Umar, what does it mean when AI agents go from tools to actors?
so it's interesting. If you see, software currently is 1% of the US total GDP.
Hmm.
1% है. The white collar work is somewhere around 21-22% of US total GDP. ये जो 21-22% है, ये सारा ही अब सॉफ्टवेयर करेगा. That's I mean it's just a matter of time.
Hmm.
Or this is a major, at one end it's a major threat as well. Long term job displacement is on the horizon. That's one part. But when
Hmm.
you talk about just आपने पूछा economic labor and all that, so if you see OpenAI, it has started to publish evals like GDP evals. कितने percent of GDP the AI can do, what percent of the GDP and stuff like that. So now that's a benchmark. When we talk to the customers, CIOs and CTOs, so for example, I won't name one of the major health insurance business in America, and that their cost currently per dollar is somewhere around 90 cents. And they're saying, how can they do it in 20 cents, right? Per $1 spent. So AI is going to take a lot of labor, but it means it's going to replace lots of jobs. At one end, it's exciting क्योंकि अगर जब मैं देखता हूँ there's so much work that previously there's so much latent ideas जो previously मैं कर नहीं सकता था. Now I'm doing it, right? It is helping me a lot. कर नहीं सकता से बात हर कोई कर सकता है. Like, but the thing was like the flow state नहीं मिलती. You need a lot of energy to do a boring work, right? So जो scaffolding of work वो सारा ये एजेंट्स करते हैं. हिस्टोरिकली उसके लिए आपको टीम्स रखनी पड़ती थी. नाउ यू डूइंग इट योरसेल्फ. बट ऑन द अदर हैंड इट आल्सो मींस इज लॉट्स ऑफ जॉब डिस्प्लेसमेंट. देयर इज अ रिस्क ऑफ लॉन्ग टर्म जॉब डिस्प्लेसमेंट. एक चीज़ ये भी है कि फॉर एग्जांपल this is one part, but दूसरा part इसका ये भी है. So Meta is building its a new organization around AI, and the rule of that organization is there should be one manager and 50 individual contributors on reporting to him. So वो जो flat structure है जो जेंसन होंग ने NVIDIA में मैनेज किए रखा है इतना अर्सा, अब वो possible है. So there should not be manager over manager over manager, right? Now largely the organizations would be flat. One guy would be able to manage lots of different things, and I think that's a good thing. So there are some ups, some downs, but I think largely there would be there would be more. अगर मैं अपनी बात करूँ तो lots of latent ideas जो मैं पहले execute नहीं कर सकता था क्योंकि मुझे किसी को कहना है और उसने फिर करना है. So now the context जो अपने पास context होता है वो तो किसी और के पास नहीं होता. So I can execute lots of work जिसमें मैं किसी को include भी नहीं करना पड़ता. I like it. ये है. So it is taking lots of labor. And
So
it
what
will
do you
down the line.
is it possible because of co-work majorly as well?
Agents. So I mean, historically, as David Shoes used to say, like AI is good from the start. I mean, but AI is good from middle to middle. लेकिन किसी ने इसको start भी करना है और किसी ने इसको end भी करना है. Real shift started to happen when co-work, especially co-work की execution बहुत अच्छी है tool use की. When they started, open cloud है लेकिन उतना secure नहीं. So when it started to do work on my behalf, and it gave me a lot of time to think. So currently, for example, if I am मेरा इस वक्त बहुत ज़्यादा टाइम सोचने पे लग रहा होता है. So I outsource my work to cloud cowork, let's say, या कोई भी यूज़ कर रहे हो agentic architecture, and then when इसको outsource किया, then I'm thinking about new ideas along the way, चल के, like what else needs to be done. So for me it's very exciting. लेकिन बहुत से लोगों को मैंने देखा है कि there's a long term job displacement up है.
True. So third news is related to the massive consolidation of AI infrastructure. There are some major infrastructure development going on, which includes even those OpenAI has recently raised $110 billion dollars at the valuation of $730 billion. With that, OpenAI weekly users are 900 million. That's huge. And even those Amazon and OpenAI announced $50 billion partnership using 2 gigawatt Trainium compute. And just to give the context, 2 gigawatt Trainium is roughly the power needed for a small city. That's a huge amount of power. In the parallel, NVIDIA is developing new infant-specific processors. That's gonna change a lot of things. So why are companies investing hundreds of billions into an AI infrastructure?
देखिए, वाई तो इसलिए कि आप यूजेज देख लें. I mean 900 million अगर यूजर्स हैं, और so Claude is entirely focusing on enterprise primarily, और जो OpenAI है it's focusing on retail end users. But it's all computation. इसको पावर करने के लिए AI को it's all math. अगर आप इसका वो उनके पेपर पढ़ें, it's all math, और but it requires lots of compute, and सिर्फ compute नहीं, lots of energy too. ठीक है. Mostly what ChatGPT and Claude is trying to do is they're building the entire compute infrastructure, they're building energy infrastructure, and then they are also building on top of it ये जो इनके सॉफ्टवेयर स्टैक्स हैं. आई थिंक जो इस वक्त जो कंपनी सबसे ज़्यादा कंसोलिडेशन कर रही है जिस पोजीशन में, उसका हम नाम तो नहीं लेते इतना क्योंकि इतनी वो आई मीन इट्स नीदर क्लाउड नॉट हो, इट्स गूगल, जिनका फ्रॉम top to the bottom सारा infrastructure already consolidated है. Like they have their own TPUs, they have their own data centers already हैं. So वो तो उस वक्त cloud को spin, when they launched cloud, और आप उनकी cloud की website पे जाएं, so where क्योंकि हम GCP की services या ML solutioning कर रहे थे, this is when you, and उनकी तो tagline ही ये थी उस वक्त भी, like run your processes and infrastructure on the same infrastructure that powers YouTube. right? So so जो true infrastructure power है consolidation की, वो तो Google के पास है, ठीक है?
Google के पास है।
So, but yeah, I mean, I think again मैं ये कहूँगा कि we are too much focused on here in San Francisco, everyone is focusing on one way or another, just another LLM. 2.5 million से ऊपर Hugging Spot के ऊपर LLM AI models पड़े हुए हैं, ठीक है? So we're not short of models now. It's stable stakes, कुछ भी नहीं है, right? अब what we innermost loop is energy. सबसे पहले तो energy है, उसके ऊपर फिर compute है और फिर ये models है. So I think we need to think about I mean, we are an AI company, but I think what I am pushing internally is how to think about energy, how to think about. So today I had a meeting with someone and we discussed at length what to think about Pakistan in terms of infrastructure. So Pakistan में शायद pre-training infrastructure तो शायद हम अभी establish ना कर सकें. It requires lots of real estate and lots of energy, but क्योंकि IPPs की वजह से energy तो access में है, but inference infrastructure पाकिस्तान के पास पूरा है. So for example, inference के लिए पाकिस्तान के अंदर data centers को establish करना चाहिए अब. I think for all the major inferencing can be routed, and that's one of my goal is how to convince important businesses to set up their inference infrastructure within Pakistan or within emerging markets. So yeah, that's what it is.
So AI is like everywhere. Report news is related to the AI is accelerating the scientific discovery. Drug discovery historically used to take years and years. Now there are recently scientific breakthroughs that include some of the major things. That is FDA approved drug of lung cancer had next year something in 44 days as in priority. That's huge. Even those cortical labs demonstrated biological neurons learning to play dome. What does it mean? That scientists view living neurons, brain cells in a lab. And even though there are things when eventually in a world neurons gonna be replaced with these silicon chips, how does the world's gonna look? These are some really, really fascinating things because the brain uses around 20 watt of energy and data centers uses megawatts of energy. So how you look towards the AI accelerating this scientific discoveries?
इसके अंदर 2-3 चीजें इसको मैं बहुत पढ़ा है. इसके अंदर जो सबसे इंपॉर्टेंट चीज तो ये है कि जो प्रॉब्लम जो आप डिस्कवर करना चाह रहे हो, where you want to accelerate the innovation, especially in sciences, वो प्रॉब्लम कितना वेल फ्रेम्ड है. So we talk about protein folding a lot. लेकिन प्रोटीन फोल्डिंग तो 1970s से स्टार्ट हुआ हुआ है. पहले एक्स-रे क्रिस्टलोग्राफी से करते थे. सो एटलीस्ट वी हैड ऑल दोस अमीनो एसिड्स और बहुत वेल फ्रेम प्रॉब्लम था, राइट? इट वाज वेरी वेल स्ट्रक्चर्ड प्रॉब्लम, ripe for this age of AI. प्रॉब्लम की फ्रेमिंग बहुत जरूरी. अगर तो प्रॉब्लम फ्रेम ही नहीं हुआ हुआ पहले से, लेकिन 40-50 साल उस पर काम नहीं हुआ हुआ और उसकी फ्रेमिंग ठीक नहीं है, सो उसको तो उसमें साइंटिफिक डिस्कवरी में आपको टाइम कंप्रेशन नहीं मिलेगा. Time compression, like for example, so can we cure cancer in the next 500 years? The answer is probably yes, right? But it means truly what AI brings to the table is कि क्या वो 500 years, can we compress those 500 years into 5 years, right? Exactly. So उस केस के अंदर I think number one thing for scientific discovery is कि problem की compression मिले आपको, right? वो उसकी framing मिले. The problem has to be well structured, well framed. और दूसरी चीज ये कि for example in terms of math, can AI discover new maths? उसमें भी अभी like for example I am from a school of thought of Robert Penrose, like for example कि AI is mathematics, it's not conscious, or so if you take that, then before you update, okay, what is Gödel's incomplete theorems, right? What it means is like there's a lot of emergence, there's a lot of computational irreducibility, that you cannot prove everything in the world. You cannot run if you can't prove everything in the world, it means if you cannot come up with proof for every math, for every math statement or mathematical rule, it means you can't run that on the computer, right? But if you can't run that on a computer, it means not by design, it's not a mathematical process. If it's not a mathematical process, then clearly AI भी उस चीज को नहीं कर सकती, ठीक है? So this is one thing, but yes, जहाँ पे you need same thing, like where for example, think about protein folding. We had these amino acids, but we didn't have that insane amount of compute infrastructure, insane of processing. वही processing जो मैं अपने cloud के बारे में बात की, cloud अभी शुरू में जो बात की, it can process huge chunks of data and then bring those patterns. अगर वो प्रॉब्लम वेल फ्रेम्ड है तो देखें फिर उसने हमारे पास डेटा था और तो वो हमने प्रोटीन फोल्डिंग हो गई, बट वो हमने डिस्कवरी भी हो गई. बट अगर नहीं है, वो फ्रेमिंग नहीं है, तो फिर नहीं होगी. सो हमें इसको प्रोबेबिलिटी के जितनी भी एआई की चीज़ें हैं, स्पेशली साइंटिफिक डिस्कवरी, उसको प्रोबेबिलिटी के लेंस से देखना चाहिए. इट वाज गोना हैव अ लॉन्ग टर्म इम्पैक्ट तो बहुत है, बट स्टिल आई वुड से कि हमें साइंटिफिकली प्रोबेबिलिस्टिकली ही देखना चाहिए. व्हाट इज अ प्रोबेबिलिटी कि एआई वुड बी एबल टू find a drug that would cure cancer in next 30 years? Yeah, probability is probably more than 20% or 40%. In next 100 years, yes, probably 70%. So that's how you want to think about it. But by the way, it's in terms of scientific discovery. You talk about cancer. If we cure every person who is living, who is alive and is struggling with cancer, so average age won't increase more than 2.5 years, average age of the planet. So real challenge the world is facing is probably not cancer, though it's a very important problem. It's a longevity. If you are in that uh, if you are in that group that thinks that humans should live longer, or these war-like situations, yes, are problems.
True. So moving on to the next news, governance is losing AI control. As we're doing, looking at defense AI is moving so rapidly, government institutions are struggling to regulate AI. What's happening basically, California requires now complete operating systems to collect birth date information. At the same time, AI-generated public comments are influencing the climate-related regulations. That's a huge thing. These all are AI-generated comments and public comments, but that are affecting the climate decisions directly. So, what do you think? Why is governance struggling to keep up with AI? Because of the slow
नहीं होना
processes or
गवर्नमेंट्स तो सोशल मीडिया को नहीं कर सकेंगे विद कंट्रोल आई मीन स्ट्रगलिंग और फिर इंटरनेट ही बंद करना पड़ता है आई थिंक एआई इज फार मोर परवेसिव अभी तो आपने एआई को ब्लॉकचेन के साथ नहीं मिलाया ठीक है अभी तो उसके साथ नहीं आया आई थिंक द फंडामेंटल डिफरेंस इज इट्स अ टेक्नोलॉजी नॉट डिजाइन टू बी बॉक्स्ड ये बंद ही करें तो करें फिर right like if they just say no one can use AI and stuff like that yeah, it is I think it requires new kind of laws, it requires new kind of governments even, right? So currently I mean governments, imagine governments are organized, government departments are organized to think about how to uh, do policy making, how to manage. We just talked about that all major private organizations are bringing this flat hierarchy. अगर government को flat कर देंगे तो government है ही नहीं, right? So it's a challenging thing. I think again I would say I would refer Imad Mushtaq, like how to think about. He talks a lot about city state intelligences, provincial intelligences, and then national intelligences. So sovereign AI stack को देखा जाए, उनकी deployments की जाएं, और government को at some point देखना पड़ेगा कि how they would start thinking of AI as just like they thought of thinking about other intelligent species. उसी के साथ देखें और उसके अकॉर्डिंग ही रूल्स बनाने पड़ेंगे, क्योंकि अभी it's not designed to be governed as जिस तरह गवर्नमेंट के जो प्रोसेस हैं गवर्नेंस के, ये ऐसे ही मांगते रहेंगे डेटा ये दे दें वो ये.
Exactly true. So आपने अभी mention किया है blockchain with AI. Like what's that combo gonna look?
So blockchain से ज़्यादा मैं थोड़ा सा आपको बताता हूँ कि फॉर एग्जांपल थिंक अबाउट करेंसी UCSD. करेंसी कोई भी जो मनी है, फॉर एग्जांपल थिंक अबाउट मनी. जब मनी को प्रोग्रामेबल आप करते हो, अभी मनी प्रोग्रामेबल फिक्स्ड है. अभी तो मेरा ख्याल है जो सबसे वर्स्ट फॉर्म ऑफ पीपल थिंक अबाउट इफ आई एम यूजिंग कार्ड, दैट प्रोबेबली इज लाइक आई एम लाइक फॉर एग्जांपल हम क्रेडिट कार्ड यूज कर रहे हैं या डेबिट कार्ड यूज कर रहे हैं, दैट्स व्हाट यही डिजिटाइजेशन है. ये तो कुछ भी नहीं है, ये तो है, ये इज नॉट प्रोग्रामेबल. Programmability, when you think about let's say after executing this podcast autonomously, we disperse some payments कि जैसे ही ये podcast complete हो, there are certain amounts that will be dispersed. Just think about it. जो money की programmability है, अभी किसी ने मुझे, for example, if someone wants to send some money from US to let's say Dubai or let's say Pakistan, it takes 3 days 5 days and all that. Why not instant? So crypto जो currencies हैं, they can be sent instantly. The reason is because it would make money a lot more programmable. उस programmability के साथ जब आप AI को mix करते हैं, like decisions at the edge, so there's so many new business models, like for example you would see startups would be built around those. I think वो वाली जब AI को आप combine करेंगे programmability के साथ, उस वक्त जो गवर्नमेंट को जो इश्यूज आएंगे, बिकॉज गवर्नमेंट हेवीली रिलाइंग ऑन टैक्सेस, हेवीली रिलाइंग ऑन, उस वक्त जो इश्यूज आएंगे, आई डोंट नो हाउ टू थिंक अबाउट इट. तो अब से सोचना शुरू करें, फिर ही है कि हाउ टू थिंक अबाउट इट.
Exactly. So the last news is related to that. Intelligence is becoming cheap as we're looking towards the trend that ChatGPT weekly users are around reached 900 million, and cost per unit of intelligence is rapidly falling as well. One of the primary reason is that a lot of investments in the AI compute infrastructures as well. So what happens when intelligence eventually will become so cheap?
देखिए, इसमें दो चीज़ें हैं. आई डोंट नो आपका वर्कलोड कितना है, मेरे लिए तो चीप नहीं है. सो फॉर एग्जांपल आई स्पेंड अ लॉट ऑफ मनी इन रनिंग माय वर्कलोड्स. मतलब क्लाउड तो मेरे सारा कुछ मैं ठीक ठाक, मेरा क्लाउड का एक्सपेंस है. इट डिपेंड्स व्हाट यू डूइंग। अगर तो आप इसको गूगल सर्च की तरह कुछ चीज़ें यूज़ करने के लिए, अपनी ईमेल्स को करने के लिए, ठीक करने के लिए या कम्युनिकेशन करने के लिए करें, फिर तो ठीक है, फिर तो चीप है। बट इफ यू वांट टू रन हैवी वर्कलोड्स, like for example, if you're doing real labor work from Claude, yeah, फिर ये cheap नहीं है फिर, and the model is called intelligence by drink. Like you use it for, there's a base price, but then you use it for a certain window, और उसके बाद फिर उसमें refresh होना होता है. So it's not cheap. अभी तो it's very expensive, and that's the reason historically SaaS pricing अगर आप देखें तो SaaS pricing पे तो $20-$30, but currently most of us are paying $200, $300, $500 in some cases. मेरे जैसे तो पता नहीं thousands of dollars a month for doing their workloads. So it depends what kind of work you are doing on this. But मुझे उसका output मिलता है. So it depends. So अगर तो आपने सिर्फ emails, reports ही बनवानी है, अगर आपने, if you don't, if your work operating system is not agentic, like you're not outsourcing a lot of work to agents, फिर तो ठीक है. But if agents तो, क्योंकि agents मैं भी एक वर्कलोड दिया हुआ था, उसने 1800 टूल कॉल्स की हैं. अब आप इमेजिन करें कितने टोकन्स दिए होंगे. सो 1800 टूल कॉल्स. सो फॉर मी वो तो 3.5 आवर्स चलता रहा, काम मेरा हो गया. बट देन it took most of my डे जो लिमिट थी टोकन्स की वो. सो इट डिपेंड्स कि सो चीप तो नहीं है, अभी तो नहीं है बिल्कुल, बट डाउन द लाइन इट विल बिकम यूजफुल. बट आई थिंक heavily dependent on what kind of questions we ask. एक ही तरह की capability है सबके पास. One would ask Claude to write a better email, another probably would say predict the molecular structure. So it depends also कि आपने सवाल क्या पूछा है. I mean, discovering a new molecule, curing someone, curing a disease, and then उसकी वैल्यू बहुत ज़्यादा है तो उसकी कॉस्ट तो फिर नहीं है. कॉस्ट इज रिलेटिव थिंग. बट अगर ईमेल ही लिखवाई है फिर तो कॉस्ट ज़्यादा.
Yeah, there's a very famous quote that it never depends on the model, it depends on the user, the quality of output. So yep, agreed. So that's it for the today. Thank you.
Hyper is a composable vibe coding platform, or as we like to call it, CVC platform, to help knowledge workers build internal tools faster and better. So rather than scaffolding the entire solution with AI, Hyper helps build blocks of code through automation and then use agentic AI orchestration to help stitch all those blocks of code to give more deterministic internal AI tooling you can trust. So essentially, it's a better way to build custom tooling or custom software. The idea is to help developers use the AI tools maximally in a one unified workflow. We've built agents like business analysts to help developers room the requirements, and then we've built data modeler who helps you transfer those requirements into a concrete data model. Then you bring all those things into Hyper AI Studio, where you build tables, hook the databases, build MCP tools to hook with a bot code, and build custom workflows, all using Hyper AI. The idea of Hyper AI is to land up at a point where helping organizations self-build their internal software systems rather than outsourcing to services vendors, and coming up with a platform where the entire solution can fit into a mind of one developer. Both seemingly different ideas come together as one holistic outcome. So it has a dual use. And I think it's a much better way to build software where you're not outsourcing everything to the vibes, and we're not only using Claude code to generate all the things. It's basically a spectrum between vibing and architecting software. It's a new class of work that we call composable vibe code.